the things that matter.
Since the last European Council, a lot of changes have been occur in your country. So what is now the state of play?
Everything that we have done in the country, resolving difficult issues with neighbors, including the Prespa agreement with our friends in Greece, the democratic U-turn in the country. We are one of the candidate countries that have been for a long time in the waiting room. After the councils in June said there will be a substantial decision by October, and in October, of course, there was another delay, there was a non-decision. Prime Minister Zaev felt that we need to re-legitimize ourselves and our policies with the voters, so the non-decision triggered early elections in North Macedonia. I asked him, how are you, one of the fellow ministers? He said, well, the state of play is complicated but not hopeless. So I think wherever you look at nowadays, not only in Europe, but globally, the situation is similar. Complicated but not hopeless.
That's a good start. And what about the Prespa agreement? You have expressed some concerns that it is in risk. Do you still believe so?
The Prespa agreement is part of our legal system. We are very much committed to continue to implement everything. There are elements of the Prespa agreement related to domestic use of all documents that are to some extent, it's written in the agreement, related to opening chapters. It took us almost 3 decades to get there, but I think if there is one mission for diplomacy and foreign relations, it is to build bridges and to make friends. So this breakfast today, I think, is a good symbol of that. There is nothing more natural than the Greek foreign minister hosting a breakfast to help the neighbors of Greece. And vice versa. Any good news in Greece is also a good news for us. After October, almost every morning, I start with a thought, quoting Mandela, it always seems impossible until it's done. So I myself operate under the premise that the bigger the difficulty, the bigger the success at the end of the day, or the pleasure of the success. I think it's going to happen.
You mentioned the working breakfast today, and I wanted to ask you about your relationships with the new Greek government. How are things there?
I've met several times with my counterpart, Nikos Dendias. He was in Skopje not too long ago, on the margins of other meetings we usually meet. I think we know each other by now. I think we trust each other. And I think we both work under the premise that many years from now, citizens of both North Macedonia and Greece will wonder, what was this all about? If we do things right, in a wise way. We want to work on energy projects together. Greek airplanes will help us with our sky in the context of becoming NATO allies. We want to open new border crossings. We want to intensify the economic cooperation. Trade has already increased. We would like to deal with the things that matter in the lives of our citizens, our businesses. So I think that we are in the right direction with the new government as well.
And what about France? Did you read the French proposal? And are you sure you can convince President Macron to start the negotiations of the accession process?
I've read it a few times, of course. There are some very good ideas there. I think it's important that it is clear that the end goal of accession is full membership, also for France. We recently marked the fall of the Berlin Wall. 30 years we commemorated, and this part of Europe is still unfinished business. And I think with President Macron and other European leaders, together with us, we will accomplish this goal.
I want to ask you about decoupling, because some member states wanted decoupling.
As neighbors and as good neighbors, we believe that Tirana should also be able to start this European journey. So I think 2 out of 2 is best, and I think we need to all work towards finding a common denominator. But if this is not possible, I think we need a positive dynamic, not a negative dynamic. Mm-hmm. So, and one, I have to say, is definitely better and more than none.
The leaders said that they would discuss again the subject before May 2020. Do you think that it would be earlier?
This has obviously a role to play in the elections. We had the start of the accession talks with the EU also in the referendum question with regard to the Prespa agreement. Mm-hmm. We have politically agreed for a date for the elections on 12th of April. I think the sooner the decision comes, the better it will be. I think that we will win these elections in any event. The right context for elections is for the EU to also deliver. The Council said before the Zagreb summit, which is in May. I think the timeline in these next 4 months is tight, mm-hmm. but the stakes are enormous.
Are you still convinced that the European perspective is the best for your country?
Without the lighthouse of Europe in our region, the pro-European, the pro-reform forces will be weaker, and other scenarios will be fueled. Populism and nationalism, I call it more shallow nationalism, governance that is not exactly democratic. This is why we need the lighthouse. So we can gain a lot if we deal with this region and the accession process in a serious way.
Minister, thank you very much for being with Euronews.
Thank you for the opportunity, and greetings to the viewers.